We're off to a rip-roaring start.
Oh, are we recording? Are we still talking about?
We're recording now.
Jen's
off air. Jen and Heaton are just complimenting each other on how beautiful each other are, and I'm just sitting here like a fucking sore thumb uggo.
Wait,
sure,
Justin,
yeah. Let's let these two just back and forth. You're so pretty. I just like the way that the light bounces off your face. Oh my god, you're so photogenic. Here I am, bridge troll. Fucking can we just get this show on the road?
We did completely.
That's true. We did leave you out. That was a
Of course you did.
Justin,
of course you
Justin,
did.
you were in my hallowed.
No, you can't say shit now.
Okay.
Fuck
Right.
you. You want to know what?
I like your hair. Also, I'm going eyebrow bald. Your eyebrows are awesome. I'm very jealous of that. I'm gonna have little pit bull eyebrows by the time I'm 50. Not looking forward to that.
Pit bull like the
You know how they just have like a little
artist?
dot on top of their eye? Like that's how pit bulls get? I think that's what I'm
like
gonna
the
have.
dog,
I'm gonna have a dot.
like the actual dog.
Mm-hmm.
You're so hard on yourself, Andrew.
Thank you.
You should get toupees for your eyebrows.
Eye merkins?
I think those are called stickers.
Stickers is probably.
They're called stickers.
Well, yeah. What else would you call them if you're putting hair?
Do they make
on
them?
Glue on your
Could I
face?
get could I just walk into
sure
an
they
eyebrow
do.
store and be like, give me a Warren
just-
Buffett?
yeah.
Just get these massive
Yeah.
caterpillars that I put on my eyes?
Yeah.
I mean-
just give me the full Eugene Levy.
I kind of like that idea. I might do that.
The chicks have this all figured out. Go into a Sephora and those bitches will have you all set up with
No,
new
that's a really
brows.
good point because ladies can just paint them. Like they just walk in and they're like, I'm feeling swoopy
Yeah.
today. And no one thinks about that. To my knowledge, everybody's like, oh, makes sense.
No. There was a really funny video that I saw that got surfaced to me somewhere where it was a chick who, she works at Twin Peaks, which is a restaurant. But then she's like, I don't really look like this. I look like this. And then it was her putting her makeup on. And either it was the caption or something she said where it's like, boys get mad because girls can do this and they just have to sit around and stay ugly.
Well, boys do wear makeup, just the good ones you never know. But every guy that I've met that does on camera stuff has worn makeup before.
That's fair. I was doing a show recently. It was another show. Don't get jealous. And they brought up is it okay to have people are using AI to look better on camera or something like that? And I was like, I've been working in this industry for a while. Are you aware of just how much weapons grade industrial strength bullshit goes into anybody on camera? They are when I worked at News Corp, the ladies that worked in the makeup department, they were all Michelangelo level savants at applying makeup and the lighting. There are several people I could mention that look completely different off camera. You would not recognize them on the street. They could dress identically, but just without makeup, you wouldn't know them at all.
The entire television industry is a large-scale catfishing exercise.
You made Heaton show.
I
know. That's how you know.
Well done.
That's how you know the joke is good, when it brings up phlegm.
I feel like this is.
Are both of you boys sick right now?
There's this. I have this. Listeners, I apologize. I have this paste. It's not even mucus. It's like a paste, like a glue that is excreted by my lungs that I have to hack up. I have never felt more leathery, haggard old guy than I do when I'm walking around and I'm like, excuse me a second. And then just spat this thing out that knocks a hole in the cement.
That's hot. I'm glad we're recording remotely.
Yeah.
It's the kind of cough that makes you want to close an orphanage. You feel in control. It's like a real authoritative cough.
Will, I'm sorry. You're going to have to cut out a lot of this today. Justin, be less funny.
Well, I have to compensate considering I look like a fucking worn thumb compared to you two shining angels.
Oh my God. The insecurities of you boys. I can't stand it. You both know you're handsome. You both know it, especially
Jen, I got an
Justin.
idea.
You
This is what I'm
fucking
going to
know.
do. Don't tell Justin. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to hire a series of escorts to try to seduce Justin, but I'm not going to tell him that they're escorts. Now, I trust Justin not to cheat on his wife. If something should happen, that's on Justin, not on me. But after 3 or 4 of these hotties that I sent his way that really indicate they want to fuck him, then Justin will be like, okay, I got it. I still got it. And I don't see how this could cause any repercussions in our friendship or any of his relationships.
I don't know if I buy the theory, because as we discovered last week, you're getting plenty of tail, and yet you'll still be bitching about your eyebrows after getting 100 women to lay you. So I don't know what's going to take away.
In fact, do you want to know what? Let's go to the emails early here. There were a few emails, a lot of conversation about Andrew's sex life in the in the feedback section. Heaton, you big slut, writes, Andrew, you live life more than most. Please don't be dissuaded from having a body count that looks like a terrible golf score. Some people have to live vicariously through your adventures.
Listener, I accept the mantle of those responsibilities, and I want you to know that I'm out slinging dick for you.
Yeah. He's putting it into the drink.
So brave.
And then save some pussy for the rest of us, writes, for the love of Christ, can Heaton please acknowledge he has pretty privilege and tall privilege? If the Yankee Doodle Panther was 5'8" with less gay baiting hair, he'd be as dry as the rest of us plebs.
You know, listeners, I want to point out that this is a good critical email. This is the kind of email that you should write when you want to criticize me. The listener is rightly pointing out that I do not own up to my raw sexual magnetism, enviable height, professional success, personality, charm, and erections that you could bend horseshoes around. Were it not for those factors, I would probably be doing more poorly. And I own up to it. You have called me out, and I own up to it. I do have all those things. I should acknowledge that I am a sex god, and I am privileged in that regard.
Humble.
And he's humble too. Yeah. And he's humble. There's an advantage to being tall, though.
There is an advantage, but I still think that Andrew would get laid as a shouty. I think people are attracted to your, like, no joke. I think people are attracted to your insights and wit and total gay bait. I think you're still gay bait if you're 5'8".
I think this might be the best
You'd
show
still be
we've
wearing
ever done.
rainbow suits and glitter.
5'8" gay bait. That's the
guys.
Yeah, you would just become a bottom.
A
That's the
great
only
episode.
difference.
I think this is we're off to a fantastic start. And you know, I think I've got really strong character actor energy, and there are a lot of people that want to go for the character actor. So yes, I think even if I were a little bit shorter, I could get over that finish line.
You would be fine. You would be fine if you were. I
do think you're right about the height thing, though, and I think that, but I think that it's overstated, because I think the height thing's become really important on dating apps. So this is a conversation I've had with a lot of guys. I don't think that as guys we quite understand that if you're on a dating app, we're having a fundamentally different experience than women are. Like, if you're a guy on a dating app, you're like, I'm going to swipe on these 20 attractive ladies that maybe I'd have a good conversation with. Hope one of them bites. If you're a woman, you're living in a dick hurricane, just an endless dick hurricane where you hop on and you're like, 300 men DM'd me saying, wanna fuck? And so ladies, understandably, have to just cut off massive amounts of people that are getting into their DMs on the dating apps, because there's too many to go through one by one, and they end up using blunt tools like height and stuff. But I don't think it matters as much in person.
I mean, as someone who's tall, I know that I don't want to feel huge. And so that's why I put a premium on height. I did date someone who was 5'8" for exactly 2 weeks because I couldn't handle it. I liked him. He was a nice guy, but like, I couldn't do it. I was just like too big. So I think that's also something guys need to realize, that it's not that that we women are like not attracted to people who are shorter than us, but it's how it makes us feel. Like, I don't like feeling like
I would really love to try dating a
ginormous.
7 foot tall woman. I think that'd be awesome. I would like to try that for a while.
Do you just be scooped up in her arms? Have her rock you to sleep?
And just think it'd be cool.
I guess so. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm by far the shortest of our troika here.
By far, by like 2 inches.
Yeah, but you guys are like tall.
You're not wee.
And I'm like average. I wouldn't say that I'm short. My family's very short. I am tall for my family.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've met your mom. She's a little cutie pie.
And my brother is small. He is short as well. So it's like, but But I would say I'm sub 6. I'd say I'm like 5'9", 5'10", something like that. Somewhere around there. I think the biggest thing with dating apps that I've heard from women is that it's not necessarily that guys are taller or shorter. It's that guys lie because they need, they're trying to get through the filter of women saying, I only want to date a guy that's 6 foot. So they all say they're 6 foot. Right. And then my friend was telling me about how she would have to have this, like, it's like, all right, for real, I'm going to make a shoe decision based on what you are telling me your height is. If you lie to me, I'm going to be taller than you and it's going to be a bad time for everybody. So I need you to tell me for real whether or not I'm wearing flats or heels.
I say it
they would very often lie.
A problem on my end, like I've been on dating apps that much of late, but when I was on dating apps, women would always go, "Oh, you're 6 foot tall," and I'd go, "Right." I put that in the dating app, and they'd go, "But everybody lies," and I'd go, well, I don't want to kick off a potential long-term relationship by lying to you and tricking you into coming out with me. That does not seem like a good idea at all. But as a result, I found out that a lot of girls assumed I was shorter than I am because they're assuming that I'm adding 2 or 3 inches. I don't know a way out of that one, other than maybe like saying I'm 6 foot and then like having a photo where I'm leaning against a door so you can really see the scaling. Maybe something like that.
That's kind of smart. Yeah. I like that.
And I guess I'm supposed to be holding a fish. Dude. It's my understanding that guys hold fish in dating apps. This is very common.
Oh, men. Yeah. Men.
So what I'll do is I'll go to the market. I'll buy a goddamn fish, like a sturgeon or something, and I'll hold it by the tail in a doorway, and it'll be a really good photo.
Wait. Well, why?
So this is like, one of those things that happens only when a bunch of people upload a lot of photos when they have a lot on the line. But what a guy thinks is a good photo is very different than what a girl thinks is a good photo of a guy. Right. So it's like there's been all these studies of like girls prefer men in dating apps have photos where they are showing that they have a full set of teeth. They are obviously in a social situation where men and women feel easy around them. So they have some kind of social cues. They are petting a dog, for example. So it shows that they have kindness. Whereas men are like, remember that time I went fishing?
Yeah,
that was great.
But I think what men are doing is I think it's like, hey, we might mate. I can provide food. I think that's what's going on. I think it's like kind of an evolutionary, like I can bring meat home. And that does not appear to be a big priority for ladies.
Yeah, but they don't do it with hunting photos, right? It's not like posing next to a dead elk.
It could just
it's always fish.
Maybe, you know what? Okay, because like I noticed when I was in Austin that like 4 out of 5 ladies on the dating apps had rock climbing. It was really important that we know that they rock climbed. So, and I think what's being intuited there is I am an athletic, outdoorsy person. So maybe the holding the fish is just the male version of that, of you should know I am an outdoorsy, athletic person.
I like being out on the water. I like being out in the sun. Also, I wake up
maybe you're
early.
giving them too much credit, and it's just like, look, I caught a big fish.
I think it's more like that, Jen. I think that like men are not complicated.
No,
women have more of a societal hierarchical issue where they think about relationships and statuses and there's a complicated matrix. Men are very simple. We are just dumb, unguided missiles that just kind of travel in one direction. So I tend to believe, Jen, it's more just like when guys are thinking about photos, it's like, we never take photos at all whatsoever. We never think about taking photos. We never want to take photos of ourselves. So when do you have a photo of yourself? Oh, that one time I took a photo of me holding up the fish.
Right. Yeah. That's funny.
Right there.
That's really funny.
I feel like I should design a dating app for Joe, like a profile for Joe before I die, because he would be that guy who's just like, oh, picture of me with a fish. And he's fished once in his life.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like a woman would do a better job of designing these profiles.
Wife. If at this point you're like, I'm going to set up a dating app for my husband just in case I die so that he is able to find love because he would be useless at it. Wow. I applaud you. That is a level of love and forward thinking that is laudable.
I just don't think he would think through the profile. Like he wouldn't be like women are looking for all these signs and stuff. And I guess I just have too many close male friends where I know it really is as simple as big fish.
I saw a really funny sketch a couple of years ago. It was really funny where It's seeing the post date breakdown from the male and female perspective, where like the door opens, the girl walks in, her 3 friends are on the couch, and she's like, let's get started. And they like go to a whiteboard, and then it goes to the guy, and he's like, what was your date like? Brunette. And then they high five and he walks away, and then it's going to the girls. And they're like, wait, but he said that he went to Dartmouth, but then he said that he went to Rutherford. What happened? And she's like, well, I think what happened, like they're getting into all this stuff, right? And then it's just the 2 guys sitting on the couch. One of them's like, gotta poop. High five again, like walk out, like just the level of complete unawareness going on comparatively.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's start the show.
Yeah.
From Austin, Texas, I'm Justin Robert Young.
I'm Jen Briney, also from Austin, Texas.
And from Washington, D.C.
I'm Andrew Heaton, sex god.
And we're not wrong on this edition of the program. We will be talking about ActBlue. May or may not be a consequential multi-million-dollar financial scandal in the world of politics. We don't know. We will discuss whether or not there is fire to the smoke. We will also talk about South by Southwest, the cultural touchstone conference in Austin, Texas that may or may not be dying. All that plus your emails on the show. Oh, I feel like we got enough personal stuff out there. Let's go ahead and get right to the stories. In February of 2025, 7 senior ActBlue staff members resigned in quick succession, including the highest ranking legal officer, the vice president of customer service, and a technical expert with 14 years at the organization. The reasons for these departures remained undisclosed. Additionally, 2 unions representing ActBlue employees expressed concern over this alarming pattern of resignation, stating it was eroding our confidence in the stability of the organization. These leadership issues follow a December 2024 letter from 142 stakeholders, including consultants, campaign staff, nonprofit personnel, technology vendors, donor organizers, donors, and academics, urging ActBlue to enhance protections for Democratic contributors against exploitation. ActBlue, which if you are not familiar, is the app that is blessed by the Democratic Party as the sole way that you donate not only to campaigns, but also to causes and unions that are affiliated with the Democratic Party, has contributed nearly $2 billion to the 2023-2024 campaign for Democratic candidates and causes, with 46.7 million channeled directly to Kamala Harris's campaign in only the first 48 hours after she succeeded Joe Biden last year. They helped raise $16 billion for these causes since their inception in 2004. Official FEC filings confirm that Biden-Harris ended 2024 with a small dollar fundraising in the neighborhood of $1.5 billion, far outstripping the Republican version of this app's WinRed's totals, which was sub $1 billion. However, ActBlue has faced a steady drumbeat of partisan attacks on the viability and possible fair play of this app, including a racketeering lawsuit from a GOP strategist last year. Mark Block claimed his identity was stolen to make 385 fraudulent donations totaling $884.38 to left-wing causes, including 35 to Kamala Harris's Victory Fund. The donations, each under $200, exploited a loophole, allowing them to evade reporting to the Federal Elections Commission. So, we know that partisan actors have attacked ActBlue for years now. We know that ActBlue has raised a ton more money for Democratic politicians and causes, despite the fact that sometimes other indicators did not show that there was a higher level of enthusiasm on the Democratic side versus the Republican side. And now there has been a mass exodus of people from the leadership of this app. Mr. Andrew Heaton, there's a lot of smoke. Do you think there's fire?
I think there's probably always embers operating when you've got a fuck ton of money in any organization. I think you're going to find some amount of friction there. What disturbs me in this situation is it wouldn't surprise me if there's some stuff going on. There's a lot of people quitting. What disturbs me, though, is the amount of Republicans wanting to litigate this in a variety of different sources. So you've got Elon Musk, our shadow president, trying to tether the ActBlue people to violent anti-Tesla protests. You've got...
You're going right to Republicans pounce on this?
What'd you say?
You're going right to Republicans pounce on this?
All right, let me back up. If you know what, I'll go abstract if you want. I'll go abstract. We can go that direction, right? So, okay, here's the heat and theory of everything that this plugs into.
Okay.
When I was in Scotland this summer, I went up to Findhorn. I think I mentioned it to you both. It's an old hippie community up in the northeast. I got naked with some 70-year-olds in a hot tub, not a sex thing. And while I was hanging out there, I saw that they've got a thing called the Plenty Fund, which is charming. Like I looked at their weekly newspaper for this old hippie commune, and there was just this little ad in the newspaper that said, we have a plenty fund that people put money into that is for members of our community that are suffering from hard times. If you're suffering from hard times and you need some money to get through the month, come to the office. No questions will be asked. We will give you money from the plenty fund. And I think that probably works just fine in a community of 150 people or less, where you're taking that money. You know who you're taking that money from. You're taking it from relationships in your life. You're taking it from kith and kin. I think people are pretty good about not screwing over people that they know. I think when you have a situation where someone is taking money from a large abstraction of strangers that they have no personal interaction with, the equation changes. And I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. So you all know Stockton, California. Jen, you're from California. Is Stockton known there? Is it a thing?
Yes.
I mean,
Yes, kind of. Stockton went bankrupt a few years ago because their police chiefs, their police department was using the position of police chief as a retirement pension spiker. So what they would do is if you were getting towards the end of your tenure as a cop, they would give you the police chief position for a year so that you would go out on the maximum salary. So they'd have like a $200,000 salary for the police chief. Your pension was in perpetuity 90% of whatever your last salary was. So they treated it as like a bonus you got. And so many people did this that the city went bankrupt. Now, it was legal. There was nothing illegal about this, although it was definitely abusing the spirit of the law. And I bet if you'd talked to the people involved, what they would have said was, hey, I work really hard for my community, and I put my life on the line, and we're underpaid, and all we're trying to do is get what we deserve. And in the consequence of it, we bankrupted the city by taking other people's money in a spirit that they did not give it to us, right? I think that is always a major risk when you have a large organization with other people's money who you don't know. So could ActBlue be doing shit where they're not entirely scrupulous in terms of certain technicalities that might not be beneficial? Absolutely possible. Is it possible that
like foreign money coming in or taking large donations that should be tracked by the FEC and wood chippering them through a bunch of straw donors to pump into?
Yeah, I'm not going to stand up. First of all, I don't know anything about ActBlue, but I'm not going to put my neck out for them. I'm not going to put my neck out for a partisan money-raising organization. Entirely possible. My guess would be that the kind of thing you'd probably see in that sort of organization is legal but fluff, where I'm in the leadership and we're going to do our conference in Maui this year for 2 weeks at a really expensive hotel, and it'll be legal. We're doing it, but we're going to spend like $3 million to do it. Or maybe I'm on the board and I get to have a private plane for whatever purpose. I'm guessing you'd see a lot of that, because I think you see that in all sorts of organizations, including nonprofits and things like that, right? The bit that worries me. So yes, Justin, I think there's entirely possible that there's embers here. I kind of look at this like an internal problem for the Democrats. Like, it seems to me that the solution to this, to a large part, would be for Democrats to go, maybe we should quit giving money to these people if there are problems here. The thing that worries me is that you have Republicans pouncing on this from so many angles that I question whether or not they are strictly concerns with the legal execution of campaign law. When you have Ted Cruz coming in through the Commerce Committee, you have Darrell Issa coming in trying to link it to terrorism, you have James Comer on the Oversight Committee, you have the House Administration Committee, and you have Elon Musk. That's 5 committees, and Elon Musk, all of which are going after ActBlue at the same time. That seems to me that the people in power have decided to use the machinations of the state to try to eliminate a fundraising mechanism for their opponents. And that is primarily what I'm concerned about at this time.
Jen?
Well, so as I looked into ActBlue, and correct me, Justin, if I'm wrong, but I don't see it as anything other than a payment processor. What am I missing here?
No, it is a payment processor.
Yeah, it looks like they just facilitate payments. They take 3.95% in order to make the payments happen. And so I know what they're being accused of is facilitating payments from foreign people to get around campaign finance laws. But it's like, if this were PayPal that we were talking about, would we blame the people, the foreigners, or those who are facilitating the payments, or would we blame PayPal for being the payment processor they used? So I'm not even sure that ActBlue is the proper people to be looking at if that's the accusation.
Well, they're a fundraiser.
No,
too,
they are. They are. No,
they're not a fundraiser. They're just a platform.
No, they're just a payment processor.
Okay.
That's what I didn't understand. I thought that they were a fundraising organization until I read about them. But like, no, they're basically PayPal for Democrats.
They are the blessed version of it. Where you had, and again, there was like a letter that was sent that they needed to take their security more seriously. Is like, for a while, they weren't even requiring like the CVV numbers on the back of credit cards, and that they were accused of being lax with their tracking on this kind of stuff. So you didn't know if somebody had donated too much. There are strict laws of how much you can put, even in a small dollar capacity, toward a campaign. So if you donate too much, you get a refund from a organization because you have donated by the letter of the law too much to the campaign.
Well, and I do know that there were some concerns about auto payments too, that there were people that got auto payments set up, didn't realize that they were being auto paid. So it's like, but that seems like standard payment processing stuff.
I go through my credit card every month because the fuckers at every company in the world will never let you off their goddamn newsletter. And they're not going to tell you, by the way, we take $1 every month in case you just wanted to cut us out of the equation.
Yeah. And when I look at this, Andrew, I noticed the same thing you did, because I was kind of looking at like, who are the people raising the alarm? And I saw Charlie Kirk, Steve Bannon, Alex Jones, and Elon Musk. And they were all saying the same stuff. And it was all in the same course of like a few days. And it's just like, I don't really trust the people yelling smoke in this theater right now. I do think, like, you know, when 7 people disappear from the leadership of an organization, like that looks like something, but at the same time,
and the new head of their tech made a statement to whoever would listen that, by the way, whistleblower protections are in place for me right now. So it's like this would not be the same story. The accusations about ActBlue padding with either foreign donors or straw donors has been around for a while. And partisan actors have gone out and done investigations where they go to some of these FEC filings, and there's a 90-year-old woman in rural Pennsylvania, and they ask her, hey, did you make 90 donations to Jamie Harrison, who was running against Lindsey Graham last year? And they're like, who's that? And they have no idea what that is. And so there have been accusations of that. And those have come from partisan sources, which is what makes this an interesting story, because the thing that backstops it is this New York Times investigation into the fact that people seem to be running away from ActBlue like the building is on fire. And this should be a very profitable time to be a part of ActBlue, because there is a lot of grassroots anger with the party out of power. Yeah, I mean, that certainly was a big fundraising time in 2017.
Justin, is it possible that everybody in this equation is a goddamn shitbag? Because that might be where I wind up at. It could be that there are some crooked people inside of ActBlue that are skirting campaign finance laws. And it also could be that Republicans don't give a shit and want to use the powers of the state to cripple their opponents.
The reason why I flagged you saying Republicans pounce is the first thing is just because it's like, yeah, of course. And like, yes, they are going to be critical toward the other side. Like that is just something that is, to me, a constant. What is interesting is that ActBlue seems to be in massive turmoil right now, because if there is a fraud here, there is the possibility that this is a multi-million-dollar, tens of millions, hundreds of millions, possibly up to $1 billion worth of fraudulent transactions that happen through this. Now, the FEC is largely a toothless organization, so who knows exactly what that means? Although apparently there were certain districts in New York that decided to take FEC law particularly seriously over the last year. There's the possibility that ActBlue could be either damaged or replaced. And if that's the case, then Democrats have lost one of their greatest resources, because the reason why people have written off the fact that Democrats have raised so much more small dollar money than Republicans is because the assumption was that, hey, ActBlue was blessed by the Democratic Party earlier. They built a better mousetrap. They have a network effect by putting all the data on there. So the app knows that if you contributed to this, you're more likely to contribute to that. You have a lot of notifications turned on. So just like any app, it's going to have a natural advantage. And that's the reason why Joe Biden and Kamala Harris raised way more small dollar money than Donald Trump, who obviously has more grassroots excitement about him. But if that's not the case, and there is something here, then that's a really, really, really big deal. You know, a small dollar money is like 3/4 of some of these campaigns.
Or 7 people quit. The New York Times ran a whole article about 7 people quit. None of them will talk. We don't know why. And we also have them working for a party which is an absolute dumpster fire. Is it possible that these 7 people saw the resistance that's happening these last 3 months and said, fuck it, I'm out? Is that possible?
I would find that less likely because they're still going to get their 3.4%. And no matter what, if somebody's mad, because remember, this isn't just campaigns. It's also all of the 501c3s and 501c4s, all these nonprofits that make up the atmosphere of the Democratic apparatus. It's also the unions. And so it's like, you know, we're going to get into on the Patreon thing, but you have this big conversation about a activist who might be deported. The organizations that are sending out the text messages that are raising money for that, that's also going through ActBlue. ActBlue is getting their 3.4% on every single one of those things. So it's like, why would you want to be away from that? Unless
I don't know.
Why would your entire leadership want to be away from that amount of money?
Why would your vice president for customer service want to step away from this shit show? Like, I could see myself being like, I'm just going to take the money I made in this last election because I made plenty, and I'm going to go do something else that's not this. Especially where you have all of these Republicans trying to take ActBlue down, and you can totally see their motivation for this. This has been an incredibly capable fundraising platform for the opposing party. So if they're able to use their position with Donald Trump, like Donald Trump is now in charge of the FEC, like if they see the writing on the wall that the Republicans are coming after this, they don't want to deal with it. The legal guy is like, this is going to be an unfair fight. I'm just fucking out. I feel like if there was something really bad going on, one of the 7 would be saying, hey, New York Times, I'm willing to talk. I've already left the organization. I have nothing to lose. So their silence says something to me. Like, you're right. There could be a whole bunch of fire here, but I'm just saying that it could just be people are done with this
Nothing
job.
to see here, folks. Nothing to see here. This is totally normal. Totally normal for your entire leadership structure to all resign and not talk about it.
I agree with you that it's fishy for those people to resign. I don't think that diehard partisans, which everybody at ActBlue is, are likely to go, I'm not committed to the cosmic moral crusade of red team versus blue team that I've committed my entire life and social life to. I don't see that as a very likely scenario. So there's probably a reason for it. But I reiterate my position of I don't like the idea of whichever political party's in power gets to try to wield a sledgehammer against their opponent's fundraising mechanism. What would make me as an independent feel a lot better about this would be, since to my knowledge, nobody's suing them in court. Nothing's going through the courts that I'm aware of right now. So it's all legislative activity.
Well, there is that racketeering lawsuit that we mentioned, where the strategist said that his identity was stolen and used to make fraudulent transactions.
Right. Okay, good. Well, you know what? Look into that. That's fine. That seems germane. There's an actual aggrieved party that has a reason for it. In terms of all the congressional activity, which seems to be the bulk of the fire sniffing that they're doing, the smoke sniffing, what I would prefer is that they write a law to have the FEC audit major fundraising platforms. So if you don't have anything to worry about, don't worry. But also, let's do the same thing with the Republicans. And if you don't have anything to worry about, don't worry. But we're going to have some kind of auditor. What I don't want to have is, as I said, we are going to scrutinize the shit out of our opponents and not our people. Like if we're going to do this, I'm fine with that. There probably should be an audit of these things, but let's do it for everybody so that it doesn't become whoever has the football gets to try to cripple their opponent while they're in power to stay in power.
Yeah, that sounds fair to me. I'm not going to say that this payment processing company is something bad based on smells fishy, and the fish smell is coming from Steve Bannon, Alex Jones, and Elon Musk. Like,
I mean, all right, look,
no, man.
But also I gave you this information without that lens. Like, yes, these people are talking about it. I'm not denying that there is a large partisan anger about this. But when I told you all the facts here, I did not need to cite them. Like there are facts here that go beyond the partisan din.
Yeah, but what facts? That's the thing. Like, that New York Times article had no facts other than 7 people don't work there anymore. And
the unions are mad about it. And the technical person is saying, please respect my whistleblower protections.
I still don't see any accusations in that. I still don't I'm just not ready to just be
wait.
It's a corrupt payment processor.
That is the first story. And you're right. You are right that you should always, keep a even keel. Usually when these stories unfold, the first story is something like that, where you have a bunch of stuff that you have the ability to confirm. The next stories that come out are some of the things that the reporters probably know now, but can't confirm. And then they find confirmations on it. So there's a chance that this unfolds. There's a chance that this doesn't. And that's why I think it's an interesting discussion topic, because I do think that both WinRed and ActBlue, but possibly just based on the numbers, ActBlue's been a little bit more aggressive with it, have the ability to do things called like straw donors, or smurfing is what it's called, which is you essentially take a big illegal or a big donation that would be illegal either because of its size or its origin. So it's either from a foreign national that's not going to register, which, by the way, Jen, we got really passionate about where money was coming from when it came to Eric Adams. But that's one of the accusations here, is that you then put that through the wood chipper and you have it go $200 at a time to go wherever you need it to go. Like,
and when that accusation comes from the Justice Department, I will take it much more seriously than I will when it comes from Steve Bannon. Like, that's all I'm saying. Like, consider the source.
I have. You are the only one who is citing Steve Bannon here, for the record.
Okay,
Justin,
go on Twitter. He's there.
I think you've got
I know. Talking to Gavin Newsom, by the way.
Justin, I think you've got a point in terms of it's fishy. So in Oklahoma, where I'm from, if a very large oil company suddenly had 7 executives all quit one after the other with no reason cited, they just all went, I want to spend more time with my family. That was it. All of us would go, oh, some bad shit went down, and they all want to make sure they're not going to get indicted. That would be where my head would jump. So I think that there's a very reasonable suspicions for what you're saying. The next question I have then is, what would you have us or Congress do? Because I think that that's the important thing here. If it's just we're going to put scrutiny on a very large organization that's political, I'm great with that. There should always be scrutiny on large political organizations. Great. Yes. Yay, scrutiny, right? But like, what are we going to do? Because my fear would be that the Republicans will come after them and find technicalities in order to prosecute them on to try to cripple them. That would be different than having like a general audit or just people aware or something like that. So what do you propose the way forward would be?
So number one, I would think actually make the FEC something that matters again, which has been systematically detoothed through the last several decades. Either party has particularly wanted to make it anything that matters. There is no real enforcement mechanism for FEC law. In fact, oftentimes the FEC doesn't even have a full board that they can execute votes for enforcement things. So I would say that especially for a party, this is my criticism of the Republicans, if the Republicans want to be the party of free and fair elections, then having a referee on the field is something that should probably matter to you. You should want to do it, even if what they want is, and this is my give to them, if they want to push reforms for like same day counting or paper ballots, whatever you want on that, layer that on top and make them the referee for it. Beef up FEC enforcement, because that is a part of this, is that it is an underfunded and understaffed organization and nobody really pays attention to it. Everybody finds a way to get around where they need to get the money. As far as ActBlue goes, and I would say WinRed is as well, if it is officially endorsed by any of these major parties, they should face more routine and regular, not only audits, but also investigations into whether or not there are ways that people are working around this. These are highly technical platforms that oftentimes can, have workarounds from the letter of the law. If what you want to do is prevent massive money coming in from overseas that funds these things, then you need new ways to look into it. So when I bring this up, number one, my biggest issue here is beyond the partisan side. If there is a problem here, and if it is provable in court, and to Jen, your point, that is something that we should probably pay more attention to. So we are probably a little bit ahead of it, and I'm more dialed in because this is a political campaign story than the average bear. But if this is the case, then the Democrats are going to have a major hole in how they run campaigns over the next several years. If there is some kind of reformation or shutting down of ActBlue and you have to wholesale move to another platform, you're declaring bankruptcy on everybody that has an app on their phone that can ping them whenever they need money, right? That's a huge material loss. And that is something that would really, really affect campaigns as small dollar donations have become more and more of a thing. Although, Jen, we were talking yesterday, some Democratic operatives hope that maybe that does happen and maybe small dollar donations are less of an issue going forward.
Yeah, they think the solution is to just lean in on the good billionaires because that's a thing. Like, let's keep going further right. We're only the party of the Cheneys now. Yeah, it's absurd.
I can,
but maybe this is a lesson that might need to be learned by these parties, that having one centralized hub for this much stuff is not wise. Like, maybe it shouldn't be so centralized, just in general.
Well, the reason why they do it is because, and this might be a bygone lesson, but there is a lot of graft in the world of politics. Shock. There's a lot of PACs that don't exist to really benefit the causes they claim to support. They really are just make work for their own organizations where they can put money in their own pocketbook. And so a blessed version of this creates trust with your voters. Mm-hmm. ActBlue. You're not going to be scared if it shows up on your credit card statement. That's why the Democratic Party blesses it. That's why the Republican Party blesses WinRed.
I can't imagine putting that app in my phone. Just getting notifications from ActBlue being like, give me money, please.
I think I've mentioned this on the
never.
show. I apologize. I still deal with this. I bought one fucking Obama mug in the year of our Lord 2010. And I don't think maybe I bought it, or I all I had to do was give them my email. And it was like a fucking Greek myth where I went down to Hades and they're like, hey, before you leave, do you want a free mug? And I was like, yeah, just have to give us your email address. I have never got off that list ever. Yeah. I get daily emails from AOC, my best friend, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and they're all horrible. Andrew, it's so important that we do this thing. Andrew, but it's like, oh my God, I know what you're doing. It's a form letter. I hate all of you lizard people so much. Let me go.
Yeah. It's over. That's my favorite. My favorite email that you get from fundraisers. It's over. Sad face. And then it's like, please, unless you give me $20 right now, go ahead.
Justin, the sociopath, actually signs up for these things. He wants them in his email.
I do.
That's just
I fucking
awful.
love it.
I know
love
you
it.
do.
I just mainline it. If it could just beam right into my brain, I would prefer it. Actually, no, the spam emails are something that get frustrating. I am just on so many of them. I couldn't get out of the life if I wanted to. Really what I want is the ads. The ads I actually really do love. That was like the famous hangover that made Jen quit drinking forever. We were in Vegas and watching football. And it was like, I was just in hog heaven. Jen wants to die. And I'm like, oh, this is great. It's just football and then all political ads. And then football starts again.
I do enjoy political
And it was
ads.
just me over a plate of chicken wings going like, that's ranked choice voting. That was the rank I was voting at.
He's like, oh, look at him with the truck. And I'm like, why are we watching the ads?
There is an art to political ads. They're really funny. Like political ads are kind of their own inbuilt Mystery Science Theater 3000 theater. Like, and they they'll go in these weird directions. Like, do you remember the demon sheep that Carly Fiorina had from maybe 10 years ago now, where there was this weird 3-year period that was awesome, where all of the campaign people went, we got to lean into weird. That's the deal, is we got to stand out. So we're going to have robots and animation. Like, there was this guy running for something in Canada, and he would like, it was all this weird CGI shit where he's like riding dragons and fighting things with swords. But it was like, they'd figured out they could get earned media attention if they had weird shit ads. And so there was like a 5-year period where all the best ad guys in the world were doing like Tim and Eric Great Job show stuff of just like weird absurdity. It was, and then it kind of stopped and it bumped me out. I enjoyed that.
I enjoy none of it. And your inbox is my hell, Justin. Yeah, I would hate to wake up to that every day.
I want to add something funny to put stuff in perspective for listeners on all these political donations. So, Justin, please correct my math on any of this, because you know a lot more about the campaign side of this than me. But in the last election, Kamala Harris raised $1.5 billion and Trump raised $900 million. Is that right?
Small dollar only. Small dollar. That's only small dollar.
Okay, so if we
small dollars only.
So if we add up, I'm putting you on the spot. I apologize. Do you have an idea of ballpark figure how much the Trump and Kamala campaigns, Kamala Harris campaigns raised?
Kamala by herself, I don't remember. I think it was like $2 billion, and I think Biden raised about $1 billion. That 1.5 is combined Biden and Kamala, but I know that the Democratic candidates in 2024 raised, I believe, over $3 billion, and Trump raised between $1 and $2 billion.
Okay, so like let's say $5 billion. So it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. However, we spent $12 billion on Halloween last year. We spent $12 billion on Halloween. Children's Halloween costume parties, children's Halloween costumes, we spent $1.3 billion on. So it's like, we do spend a lot of money on this, but I want to tell listeners, we spend money on such frivolous bullshit in our country anyway. It's such incredible amounts that it's not actually that much compared to like Halloween candy.
Yeah. Well, if we're going to compare it to Halloween, if we're going to compare it to Halloween, then I want JD Vance to dress up like a slutty cat.
Wasn't that an internet thing this last week where everybody made JD Vance pictures? It was like a meme.
Yeah, memeable. Yeah.
British Fantasy made one with JD Vance on her own face.
Yeah.
It was pretty good.
No, that dude's going to be, if we're not in a depression by way of a tariff war that ruins the global economy, like JD Vance is going to be president. Like people, like nobody gets memed unless they have power. Like to be memed is
that's
to
not
have
true. People get memed all the time because they're fucking funny.
It is.
There's lots of memes of people I've never heard of, like a kid with his fist in the air in front of a sandcastle. That's
power.
A dog that shits out laughs or something. I don't know. Like, no, it's not all sad.
I like turtles kid. He's one of my favorite memes. He's six. He doesn't have power.
Well, I mean, because that was in a bygone era. We went from fucking the Hawk Tua girl went from being drunk on Beale Street to being involved in a multi-million-dollar meme coin scandal within like 8 months. Like, you're telling me that memeability isn't power?
I think memeability can give you power, because I know if I saw that I like turtle kids and they were like, where is he now? And he's like a 30-year-old stockbroker. Like, I'm stopping what I'm doing and I'm watching the segment. So it's like, I think memes make you interesting. Power. I think it gives you power. It's it is how we identify. It is how we identify power. Yes, you do.
I think, Justin, you're just using the word
turtle
attention.
Kids had no power. He had none. That, he was just a kid.
Yes. I mean, and that's a viral video that surfaced, and then all of a sudden you care about that kid.
Yeah, so I'm saying it goes the other way. Yes. It goes meme to power, not power to meme.
Confusing correlation with causality. I think Jen is hit it on the head. The attention confers power. It's not that we give attention to things which have power already.
We're talking about the outer reaches. I'm talking about politics here.
Okay.
Like
we made him mad. He's very frustrated.
See, now I have to do the performative calm voice or else I seem really mad because there's no way you fucking box me in when you say somebody's mad. There's no way for them to do it. Like you just the person just has to start speaking with a British accent, like to be like, oh, indubitably, I'm not mad. Why would you think such a thing? Such a dirty trick. No, there was discourse. There were JD Vance meme discourse of like, oh, why is he being made fun of? And certainly there was a large amount of the meme element that was like, ha ha ha, fuck JD Vance. But you got to be careful with that because if you have too much fun mocking your enemies via meme, I do believe that it adds to their power. I do believe that it makes them stickier, not only with their own side who want to then bind to them, but also it's just fun.
The only reason George Santos is a thing is because we keep paying attention to George Santos. If George Santos were not clickbait, George Santos would just be in prison or like the under guy at a really shady used car dealership. Like that, like he has no intrinsic power or value other than
he would just be hitting on Heaton at karaoke.
Yep.
I think the only reason this is happening to JD is because he has such a memeable face with those like
he does
really beady eyes and the different facial hair. Like he just has so many features. It's just easy to plug and play that face. I'm not sure it's political at all.
I've got a theory that it's a good idea if you're trying to become a public figure to have things that can be made fun of, because then they'll make fun of you on Saturday Night Live. Like if you have nothing that sticks to you, Saturday Night Live can't do anything with you. But if you're from Oklahoma and you kind of seem British and you've got weird aphorisms you use and kind of bizarre spoonerisms, you could be made fun of on Saturday Night Live.
Well, God knows JD has the stickiest of couches.
Yeah. And they made that up for him. They gave that to him.
Yeah.
He's the couch fucker.
That's a good one.
Patreon.com/we're not wrong is where you need to go if you want to get a bonus episode of this very show. This week, we're going to be talking about Mahmoud Khalil, a man who organized the Colombia protests and now faces deportation. He's actually got a court hearing as we are recording. We will talk about that and much more on our Patreon exclusive episode. If you get to the end of this episode and you're like, man, I wish there was like anywhere between 30 and 40 more minutes of the show. Congratulations. We'll sell it to you at a price. Patreon.com/we're not wrong. And I'm going to go to the bathroom.
Jen, what do you want to talk about?
Okay. Justin's tiny bladder that seems to have gotten smaller now that he's a dad.
Yeah, what is he doing? That like I've seen Justin like drink a barrel of whiskey and then just go to sleep and wake up the following day and pee. So like, what is he drinking now that is causing him to get up in the middle of a broadcast?
I don't know. 2.5 years of working with this man. He's never done this except for the last 2 weeks.
Maybe he's drinking a lot of protein shakes. I've been drinking protein shakes. Maybe that's what he's doing.
I know what he's drinking.
What?
He's drinking the breast milk.
Oh.
It's the only thing that makes sense.
I get it. He's jealous of his daughter. She's got an intimacy with his wife. He wants to be in on it. He's drinking the breast milk. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yep. That's totally it. Plus he gets to suck on a boob.
Yeah. Keep going, Jen. Just keep going with this bit. I'm going to sit back for a minute.
It's the only explanation. Because like, I know a woman's body changes when she has a baby, but like, why would Justin's bladder get smaller?
I don't know if this is true or not. My friend Paul told me that when men have kids, when they become a father, their testosterone drops, and that it appears to be an evolutionary tactic because testosterone makes us like more risk prone. It makes us like go do stupid shit to get attention and get mates. So if your testosterone drops, you quit doing a stupid shit. So it's a way of like, hey, you've got kids now, quit doing stupid shit. But I don't know how it would affect his bladder.
I got fat, and so I needed to keep my diet on track. So I've just been drinking so much more fucking water. Like by the time that I get to We're Not Wrong at 11, I've drank like 6 pints of fucking water. Mm-hmm. And so I've been peeing.
Yeah, listeners, just so you know, when Justin gets up like that, he still has his headphones on.
This is not in the show. So
We'll
definitely put this in the show.
Respond, and if there's one thing to drive Justin fucking crazy, it's us talking about Justin when he can't respond.
I know.
And when he can hear us the whole time.
Which I can.
Well, keep it in.
Keep it in.
Cut it.
I'm your boss now.
It's fucking, you don't pay him. I do.
He should be more afraid of me. I'm a bigger bitch.
That's a fair point. Fuck. South by Southwest is ongoing in Austin as we record. But while it still generates headlines as well as it ever has, there are signs that this venerable conference here in the great state of Texas might be all hat and no cattle. Attendance, officially, according to organizers, is, quote, not at pre-pandemic levels again. This is now the fourth version of the conference that happened since the shutdown, which means it might actually be on a decline compared to where it was before. And South by Southwest Interactive, once the hotbed for startups in the app boom, now just is kind of a place where companies launch products. The keynote speaker is Michelle Obama, who's launching a new podcast. Jen, let me ask you this. Is South by Southwest special?
I know that people here in Austin sure love it, except...
Do they? I think they get kind of
losing...
irritated with it. The townies don't like it. It's all the people flying in.
Well, I mean, it's interesting living downtown during this right now because we're in the middle of it. There's nothing we can do. So talking to my neighbors, a lot of them used to get tickets to it. And I have yet to meet anyone in the building that got tickets this year. So these are people that used to go and aren't going now. And I've gone one year. Thank you, Ruben, for hooking me up. I went, actually, Andrew and we went the same year.
Thanks
and
for nothing, Ruben. I got it from my friend Ashlyn.
But I just found it was a lot of waiting in lines. Like we had the best passes and we were still waiting in lines for hours for things and still not being guaranteed to get in. And then when I got in, it was advertisements. Like I just felt like I was getting advertised at stuff. And I know that my friends here that are leaning into it this year, they were leaning in for the free drinks. So they were going to the free events. So it's like Amazon Prime had one, Dubai had one for whatever reason, Rivian had one, and they were just going to the ones and basically bar hopping. So
yes,
but it was all advertisements where I feel like this used to have the buzz of like, if you had some amazing new tech, this is where it got launched. And now it just seems to be movie premieres and advertisements. And so I've just found that the people I know here who used to love it, didn't lean in this year, including people like me that live right in the middle of it all. Like if we have to listen to the noise and like, God knows it was so noisy here this weekend, you would think we'd want to be a part of it, but most of us were just not. So I think it has to be losing its luster if that's the reaction around here.
I started going, well, full disclosure, I've never gotten a ticket for South by Southwest. So I have never been in the convention center when that is happening. I have often been in the city, even before I lived here, for South by Southwest because it was an extraordinarily exciting and super fun place to be. Not only did you have an element of the advertising, like if there was a new show, especially if it leaned toward like the geeky or the nerdy, there would be a big immersive experience that would be in there. But it was largely because of the tech, because of the app boom.
Yeah.
And now that just doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah, I think it's jumped the shark. So I think that there's a kind of lifespan that happens to a lot of events like this. Like I went to Burning Man a few years ago. I had a really good time. I would potentially go back, although it would conflict with my normal summer plans now. But I'm told by people that have been going to Burning Man for years that Burning Man had much more of a fringe feel to it for a while, where it was this kind of eclectic group of weirdos that would meet in the desert. And then it became cool. And once it became cool, then it became a ton of people that wanted to get Instagram photos, like a disproportionate amount of people that were just going there to get iconic photos in the desert. And then it's like, well, now we're hanging out with shallow people that might have some positive vibes to them, but like it's juxtaposed to the spirit of this. So maybe that happens there. Like here in DC where I live, when I first moved here years ago, H Street was kind of gritty. It was really cool, but it was right on the edge of like 5 years earlier. It's where you went to get mugged. And now there's like this awesome bar that has a miniature golf course in it. And there's this other bar that bought all of the shit from a traveling freak show that went out of business. So like you'd be drinking and there'd be like a two-headed beagle that was stuffed in the corner. It was weird. It was cool. And then they put in a Whole Foods. Like the order of operations goes, poor neighborhood, artists move in, then the gays move in, then college students move in, then the Whole Foods comes. And so, and then it's not fun anymore. Now it's not cool. Now it's your parents that live there, right? So I think these things kind of naturally happen. And with South by Southwest, I was very, very flattered that I got a ticket to go, and I found it to be mostly a headache. It was like I had a lot of homework to do. Like the stuff that I wanted to go to, you had to wake up early to try to get your name on the list, and I would never manage to get it. So the stuff I actually wanted to go to, I couldn't go to. And then I would go to other things and I'd wait in line. And it ended up me taking a whole week off from my program to ostensibly network and find potential guests for my show. I got one guest out of the entire week. I remember 2 talks that I went to. I don't remember any other talk that I went to. It was just a big headache. And like, if people get stuff out of it, great. Like, I don't want to like firebomb the thing, but like, I don't particularly want to go back. I've got other things I'd rather do.
Well, South by Southwest also, to be fair, it grew out of it being a music only festival. That's what it was known for. You went down there, you saw a shit ton of bands, and that I do believe, like, that's what's starting now. Interactive is over and music has begun, and that is probably going to be as vibrant as ever. The difference is that the music industry is just in shambles. Like, radio's gone, MTV's gone. The only thing that matters is streaming, which means that the only people who get paid are like Mariah Carey once a year and the Baby Shark people. Other than that, everybody's working for scraps. The idea of being on a major label doesn't matter in the same way that it used to. So like, being discovered isn't that big of a thing. And like, it's just, you know, it is what it is. The movie side of it and the TV side of it is more of a big thing because like, you do have stars that come down here, but now it's like, okay, so it's more of a movie festival, and the interactive side is just kind of blah. It's mostly a media thing because they still do book glittering stars because the cost to get in has gone up every year. So they need to compensate for you spending $1,200 a ticket.
That's another thing is like, I would go on my own Steam maybe for $300 the first time. I don't think now I would do it anyway, but maybe that first time I would have paid $300 because, again, I'm looking explicitly to find good guests for my program who are interesting and I want to go see their thing, right? $1,200 is even tax deductible for me a bit much, right? I'm not going to pay that for myself, pricey. Which means that I'm going to have to do it through a bunch of institutions, which means you're not having individuals show up anymore. You're having companies show up, which is going to change the nature of the beast.
I would have paid if I was able to get into all the sessions that I wanted to get into. The fact that it was so difficult to get in, like, they're clearly overselling this conference. And I think that was the biggest problem for me, is that the value isn't there for the people that do pony up. Like, you only get to do a couple of things. Like, the best thing I did was actually in film and television. I got to see Michael J. Fox's documentary, and it was beautiful. And he was sitting right behind me, and there were like tears, and it was a wonderful experience to be there. But I did with the best, like, I was able to get on the app and get my, fast pass or whatever the fuck they're calling it. And I still had to wait outside for an hour and a half before I got in. So it was a lot of time that I had to burn, and I had the most expensive ticket. So I think that's what was upsetting to me as an attendee. It's like every other conference I go to, if I want to go to the session, they have made it so that everyone who wants to go will be able to fit. Like, the conferences I go to are podcasting conferences. And so I know the people that are putting these together, and it's like, okay, if we have Mark Cuban speaking, we're going to put this in the big room and make sure that everyone can get in, even if it has to be standing room only. Like, we'll have a room where, you can kind of open up the side of it and people can stand outside, but they make sure that if you paid, you get to go. South by Southwest has not done that. And so I think it's ruining the reputation. Now, Justin, you said something that I do think is correct, which is that it started as a music festival, and where it will become relevant again is in the music, because over here at Auditorium Shores, they put up a giant stage and they had Sip and Sounds. And apparently Sip and Sounds, it's a festival that they moved somewhere else. They brought it back to Auditorium Shores. It was sold out both days, and even resale was sold out. You just couldn't get a ticket. And I had dozens of friends that went to that. So it's like the music is still relevant, but the conference itself, where it used to just be like, if there was something big going on in tech, like, this is where you do the announcement. There's none of that this year. Film and TV is still there. I will say, like, the Simple Favor 2 premiered here, and that was huge news because Blake Lively showed her face. So there is some buzz in that. Oh, and I got to hang out with the cast of The Surrender, which was fun. The Surrender's getting excellent reviews. So
What
it's
is
like,
that?
it's a horror film. So
Oh,
yeah. So they were all at a bar and I went and hung out with them on Saturday night. But even that, like the bar was packed. And then I walked through Gay District to get home. So I was like, maybe I'll pop in and dance somewhere. And the lines were all around the corner. You couldn't get into anything. So it's just.
well, then maybe that's the case to say that it's still popping. You know, if the city is still rocking and rolling, then it is good that it is there. The thing that I would wonder, and this is more of an excuse for like, hey, it's not that South by Southwest changed. It's just that the tech industry was really boring for the last 10 years. And, you know, unless you wanted to get really rock hard about crypto or VR, like there was not anything super exciting in the way that app boom of like the 2010s was. But, you know, maybe in the next year, you just see a million different AI powered apps that are really exciting and people want to use in a mass scale. And that's really what South by Southwest was. You had a bunch of early adapters in one city that could now interact based on these apps. And that's where like Foursquare kicked off. That's where Twitter kicked off. That's where like a lot of these social media things really exploded because you could prove that they were worth it when you had a couple hundred people in the same city.
That's a really good point, that those were the types of apps that were there, because when Andrew and I were there was a lot of anger about the fact that the CIA was at the tech part of it.
Yes,
and now they're
back.
like, yeah, they're back and they're advertising drones. I know that there's certain musical acts that no longer want to come to South by Southwest because they're now advertising for the war industry. So that's been a shift as well. It used to be these apps that were for us, and now they're advertising for the murderers.
There was a great tweet that was like, look, I don't want to dump on South by Southwest, but 10 years ago, I randomly took a wrong turn and I saw the Flaming Lips perform the entire album of Yoshimi Battles the Pink Robots. And now it's just Citibank presents Da Hip Hop Factory, sponsored by the Department of Homeland Security.
Yes. Yes. And it is a vibe shift. And I don't think that it's loved by everyone. Let's just say that.
Yeah. Well, here's what's loved by everybody. Your emails to the program. We're not wrongpod at gmail.com. Send us your emails. Love isn't bipartisan, writes. My wife and I watched the most recent season of Love is Blind on Netflix. For Heaton, the premise is that young people go into pods where they can talk to members of the opposite sex, but they can't see them, with the goal of getting engaged or married over the course of a few weeks. Once they get engaged, Netflix sends the engaged couples on vacation, then follows them around as they move in together, plan their wedding, and culminate in the wedding. This season, 4 couples made it to the altar, which, spoiler alert, 3 said no, 2 of which seem to be primarily because of political differences.
So 2 things on this. One, first of all, thank you for explaining pop culture to me. I actually really appreciate that. I think politics is a really big deal in courtship at the moment. It is the new religion. If you go back 100 years, you would hear families saying like, listen, Bobby's a really good boy, but he's a Catholic and you can't marry a Catholic. And that's politics. The Democratic Party and the Republican Party they're a religion for lonely people. That's what they are. That being said, though, this is a dumbass way to get married. So like pinning this on politics, this is a fucking game show to get married. Yeah. Of course it was going to have a negative outcome. So like maybe the proximate cause is the politics, but I don't think any of these were going to be stable unions if it's a game show.
Have you heard of The Bachelor and The Bachelorette? Because it's the same kind of trash.
I've heard of it, and
except
I pride
like
myself
The Bachelor
on having never seen it, and I don't plan to.
Good on you.
The Bachelor is just like, have you heard the term hypergamy?
No.
Is that wait? I think I know that one. That's where like the goal is to
be the one
level
to know
up
it,
slightly.
Heaton.
You want to date somebody who's slightly better than you. That's the goal. Is that hypergamy?
No, it's basically when, because of the way that society has been ordered, the top of like the Sigma Chads among us get all the women, and then everybody else kind of it goes wanting. And like that is an example of like The Bachelor, where you have like 18 really hot women, but they are all just fawning over themselves and beating each other up so they can all offer themselves sexually and emotionally to one man. And then there's obviously the gender flipped version with the Bachelorette. This, I think, wound up becoming a thing. Love is Blind is a very popular show on Netflix, but it got traction in political circles because there was one couple specifically where the girl was very, very dialed in. She really liked the guy, but was very dialed in on, so what did you think of George Floyd? What did you think of Black Lives Matter? Blah, blah, blah. And he was not like argumentative. He was not argumentative. The problem eventually, which left him at the altar, was him saying like, I don't know. I didn't really pay attention to it. It wasn't anything that really was a part of my life. And so she was upset that he was not either that it was coded that he actually did care and he was on the opposite side of her, or that he did not have the curiosity to look into things that she found particularly important.
Good call. Dating in the 21st century is super easy. It's why we have such a high marriage rate. So be as picky as you can about politics. Good call, lady.
I was at a table at a bar with two single friends, one of which is in a relationship, the other was not. And he was the guy who was single, who's like on the dating apps now, is like, it's hell. You have no idea which women are just advertisements for Chili's, and they're going to set you up on a date and tell you to just go to Chili's and then just stand you up. But meanwhile, you've already had 2 plates of $5 buffalo boneless wings. And so they've gotten their thing. And so my friend who was on the dating apps and is now in a relationship is like, man, I'm really glad I got out before AI. And I'm like, wow, I'm glad I got out before AI is what I would say of I'm glad I got out before the dating apps. There's always a new fresh hell to put on the single dater. This is how democracy dies, right? To the outright Roddenberry shill, Mr. J. Andrew Heaton. Sure, it's totally plausible that the collapse of the evil empire could be fully pivoted to join the side of the good guys. But we could just as likely see that the collapse of the galactic empire, the new republic wasn't on the watch for any threat on the horizon. And lo and behold, we get the new order and somehow a return of Emperor Palpatine. I get that Admiral Thrawn coming back from the uncharted area of space had something to do with the rise of the new order, but I don't remember everything from the Anthony Zahn novels or how it integrated into the canonical David Filoni universe. But I still contend that Star Wars is more analogous to the geopolitical realities of our current world than Star Trek hopium.
Jen, do you want to go first? I appreciate this email very much. This is up at the Heaton thing. Do please acknowledge, listener, that you were taking the neocon position. I am not taking the neocon position.
Oh my God.
But that being said, though, I do agree with you. I think Star Wars is a lot more like the universe that we live in than Star Trek. Star Trek is this kind of like sort of socialist fantasy of everyone in the Star Trek universe is completely selfless and utterly competent, and there are unlimited resources, which is the only world in which socialism would work well. Whereas Star Wars is like, like centralized big governments suck and we got to fight them. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I liked your email.
The Federation's fascist. It's a fascist.
Christian Britsky, who's a friend of mine, is going to come on alienating the audience to make that pitch that like we're basically seeing propaganda from the Federation standpoint, but that it's like space fascists or something. I don't know. I haven't talked
as they blithely just talk about how they need to spare life-saving technology for other planets because they're too poor to understand it.
Yeah. Tim Sandifer is a friend of mine, takes that position that the prime directive is inherently immoral.
Yeah. Come writes, unless there's a little Charlie Heaton running around Scotland, Justin is the only one on this show who could say that he's sexually productive. Hell, for all I know, Heaton and Bryony are a couple 40-year-old virgins.
Yes, I am a virgin, Dad. Thank you for writing in.
On Ukraine. Only Donald can go to Ukraine, writes. I'm firmly grounded in the thought that Trump is an asshole, but he's not the worst person in the world. Is there, at the current moment of this email and World War III pending, someone that would be better suited to handle a negotiation between Ukraine and Russia? From my limited vantage point, there are very few leaders in American politics that have any sway. Trump has preached peace from the beginning, and even if he has an alternative motive, it's a great narrative from a powerful position. Is there somebody else that could accomplish this better than him? Maybe I lack the imagination to see a better outcome. Worth noting that there was an announcement from Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, that Ukraine has agreed to a 30-day ceasefire. The ball is in Russia's court, as was repeated by various different power players.
There's
anybody better than Trump?
There's an old Vulcan proverb Only Nixon could go to China. That's from the undiscovered country. I think you've got a good point. Look, I also think that Trump is a asshole, and I think he's a shitbag. But he seems to have a pro-peace inclination, or at least an isolationist inclination. And if he can broker a deal between Russia and Ukraine, I will consider that good.
I think there might be better people that could do this, but in this political moment, what I've witnessed in all my years of, really studying what these two parties actually do when in power, when it comes to our foreign policy, all the countries that are not wholeheartedly down with the economic system that is really centered in the World Trade Organization, they're branded as enemies. And so that, I think, is the basis of the Democrat and Republican Party in general, making Russia the enemy, making China the enemy, like no matter what, they're the enemy. And Donald Trump, for all his faults, is just not that. And so one of the few things that I do like about Donald Trump is that he can look at the Russians and see something other than enemy. And as we'll see in some of the emails I know are coming up, there's plenty of people where Russia is evil. That is it. They want to take over land like that. I don't necessarily think it has to be that way. I don't think necessarily that Russia and China have to be our enemies no matter what. I think because of the way things just are, they are adversaries right now. But I kind of like the idea of, at the very least, talking to them. I think one of the biggest mistakes of the Biden administration is they just did diplomacy by silent treatment. And I think that is a huge mistake. I think that we should be treating other countries with the respect of at least speaking to them, especially if we're, launching bombs and we all have nukes. And so, but I just, Donald
Look at you
Trump
carrying water for JD Vance's talking points in the Oval Office.
But that's, here we go. This is why I hate talking about this shit. I don't think that Donald Trump is the right person here because he doesn't seem to have any actual principles. Like I could see him betraying whatever he tells Russia next. Like he's so transactional. So it's like, is Donald Trump like the best person? No, I don't want him to be in power in any way. But is he the worst right now? I mean, there were a lot more bombs dropping when Joe Biden was president. So I have to give the Trump administration where credit is due, that at least that seems to be mellowing for now. So I
mean, I don't think we'd be here if Harris was president, right? I think we would probably be following the same course as the Biden administration if she had won.
Absolutely. And I don't think there'd be a ceasefire in Gaza either, if we're being honest about it. So he's not the worst, but is he the person I want in charge right now? No.
Jen, two things. One, woeful amount of Star Trek references in that analysis. I'm knocking this out of the park. Two episodes in a row. I don't know what you're doing.
Well done.
Second, just with the foreign policy analysis, that we're trying to, the powers that be want to make an enemy of anybody that's not plugged into the WTO. Aren't China and Russia members of the WTO?
They are, but if you look at especially China since the 1990s, the sin that we keep accusing them of, rightfully, because it's accurate, is that we let them into the World Trade Organization and then they never followed the rules, which is exactly what happened. So, and
we also classified them as a third world country that allowed them to operate and speed up on a level that they probably shouldn't based on their size and
still
capital.
do, by the way. So that's fun. They're still classified as a developing country. And then at the same time, they are now developing this like parallel system to the World Trade Organization. So like the IMF is what I keep calling the loan shark of the World Trade System. And the Belt and Road Initiative is kind of doing the same stuff, except instead of demanding changes to economic laws like the IMF does, the Belt and Road Initiative says, well, let our companies control your ports for the next 100 years. And they actually, because their banks are not privatized, all of the interest on their loans goes directly to the government. So it's different goals, but it is like a parallel system. They're competing with that system. So it's like, we let them in, but if they're not wholeheartedly following the rules, then they're the enemy of the system. And I think when I look at the list of people or the countries that are our adversaries, all of them fit in that category of those that are just not following those rules to a T.
History knower writes, as somebody who knows Russian and Ukrainian history, at this point, neither side wants an end. Russia wants a break to rearm, but only a fool would believe that this is the end of their ambitions. It's been this way for hundreds of years. The Russian Empire will keep expanding like it has. It was the same under the monarchs, under the Soviets, and now under whatever Putin is. Ukraine wants to fight to regain its territory. Honestly, I don't see any world where peace lasts more than 10 years unless Russia and China go to war.
So I partially agree with you in that in the short term, yes, I think Russia's probably wanting to get a ceasefire in order to rearm. I think that's probably their goal because none of the underlying factors have changed for them.
And to retool their economy.
I think
that's the biggest thing.
And absent some sort of long-term solution, they will resume doing this. I don't disagree with you there. I also don't think that Ukraine wants a permanent ceasefire. They want to get their land back. So I think you're right about that. But I will disagree with you on kind of the broader implication of your comments, which is that there's just something in the Russian soul that makes them expansionist and that they are a permanent enemy of the United States. I am not a fatalist with other countries. Like if we were to go back 100 years, anybody you would talk to would say, look, the Germans are just an inherently militant people. They've always been a militant people. Look, from Frederick on, they're always going to be a martial society. There's nothing you can do about it. We just have to break them and keep them down. And like, they're cuddly today. Like same with Japan. Like if you looked at Japan 100 years ago, you'd go, they're never going to be a democracy. They will never be a democracy. It's not in the Japanese character. They're a collectivist authoritarian society. They're a democracy. They came around, right? It's part of the reason that I'm hopeful about the Middle East. That is many awful things that are there that will almost certainly preclude peace. I don't think that like innate character is a part of it. I think things can change. And so I'm as big of an anti-commie as you get. And I'm a very big anti-authoritarian. I don't like Putin. I don't like the Russian state. It is a kleptocracy of authoritarian thugs. I don't want to be like cozy with their regime, but I would like to get to a point where, yeah, we could be friends with Russia the exact same way that we become friends with Germany and Japan. And I do think that's possible.
Well said.
Take the deal, writes, Ukraine should take the mineral deal while the minerals are actually worth something. The U.S. is offering a speculative deal. There's a risk that rare earth mines won't produce as much as we're hoping. And in 10 years, rare earth metals might not be worth as much. Lithium ion batteries are not going to power our future. We need a big leap forward in batteries, and I've seen a few techs on the horizon that don't require rare earth minerals and would likely replace lithium-ion batteries if they were able to develop into larger amperage versions of the current tech. Take the deal, Ukraine.
I don't know enough about
I think there's something to this.
Yeah, I don't know enough about the tech, but that sounds smart. Jen?
All I know is from husband Joe, and because his company actually does do batteries for the utility scale solar systems. And he's saying the only reason that they use lithium ion is because that's what's available right now, but it's not meant for that. Like lithium ion batteries are meant for cell phones and things that are small.
Yeah.
And so he is convinced that it won't be too long before that is not what they're using for the batteries. What are they using instead? I don't know. But they are actively looking at different technologies. And so there's something to this idea.
I will channel Tom Merritt, who may or may not be listening right now, and say, yes, and new battery tech has always perpetually been like 3 years away for the last 30 years. And there's a reason why we just keep building bigger and bigger and bigger lithium ion batteries, because it has become the dominant tech. And the proof, like, it's always been a promise. It's always been a possibility. We do need it now, probably more than ever, beyond just green energy. We just need ways that we can capture and store energy and move it from one place to another, probably more than we ever have. And we're not there yet. And every time that we think that we're very close, we just kind of stay very close. Now, then again, that is how this kind of stuff tends to go. We were really, really close with machine learning for a really long time. And then all of a sudden the dam burst with LLMs. And now all of a sudden we're like leaping forward like decades in a matter of months. So you never know. You never know where this kind of stuff is. And finally, on Ukraine, trust the Russians, right? Engaging with Russia after the Cold War. Listen, I'm European. We tried that. Germany, most of all. They called it Wandel durch Handel.
Nailed it.
And if we just intertwine our interests with Russia, they would never turn on us, or so we thought. My country fell for it too, organizing a whole ass Dutch-Russian year of friendship with Russia in 2013. Turned out to be a whooping disaster. 1 year later, a Russian missile crashed a passenger plane in eastern Ukraine, killing 193 of our citizens. Jump forward to 2022, and those engagements with Russia meant that we are now paying hand over fist for gas, now that we're not getting it from Russia anymore. Cursing the day that we ever thought that we could trust those guys, cursing the politicians that did it. I very much do not need some fat cat Americans telling us that we should have trusted them even harder. Hey, fat cats, apologize to these Euros.
I'm flattered to have finally crescendoed at the level of fat cat. I don't think I've ever been accused of being a fat cat before. So to clarify my position, and I think Jen will back me up on this, I'm not saying you have to trust the Russians. Like I'm not saying that that Putin's a good guy. I'm always telling you to be suspicious of every government. Be particularly suspicious of the Russians. Trust but verify, to quote a former American president. What I am saying is I don't think that treating the Russians as a permanent enemy race is a smart position, and that what we want to do is we want to redesign the structure that we find ourselves in to compel them to be trustworthy allies. And that means probably having interaction economically. It means not permanently assuming that they're enemies. America's done a lot to egg them on. Like George W. Bush during his regime, his administration, he set up anti-ballistic missiles in Poland to protect Europe from Iran. Now, if I'm Russia and I'm looking at that and I'm going, okay, we're done with the Cold War. We all agree on this. And now the Americans are putting up missiles pointed at us on our border in Eastern Europe, near our border in Eastern Europe, ostensibly to fight the Middle East. Like, it's bullshit. We know it's bullshit. You guys are rearming. The United States is rearming in anticipation of a conflict with us. That stuff we could have avoided. I don't think that made the situation any better. So trust them? No, don't trust them. Trust but verify. Assume that they're skeezy authoritarians, at least under the current regime. But let's leave some room open for that changing potentially in the future. Let's try to design a system that doesn't inflame their shitty instincts, but rather caters to their self-interest.
He called him Pooty Poot, though, and drove around in a truck.
Andrew, you were right. I agree with every word of that. And there's just one part of this email that's I'm confused by the history here, because this emailer says we are now paying hand over fist for gas. We're now getting from Russia. We're not getting from Russia anymore. Cursing the day we ever thought we could trust these guys. Cursing the politicians that did. Russia was fine with selling y'all the gas, as far as I remember. The reason that the gas isn't flowing is because of Western sanctions. Like, what am I missing here? It wasn't that Russia was like, we're not going to give it to you anymore. We blew up the pipeline. That they did a thing that could get them sanctioned, that cut off the gas, that made it more expensive, because now they have to buy Russian gas that passes through 2 pass-throughs, so they can not be I don't know, in dereliction of their sanctions.
I confess, listener, that I am not super aware of Dutch energy policy. But I was there in Germany when they decided to go off nuclear power, and I think that was a huge misstep. Like Germany basically went, we're going to freak out because of a thing in Japan, so we're going to put our energy more into fossil fuels, which is not a great idea, and we're going to get those fossil fuels from Russia. Yeah, that was a misstep here. But I think, I don't know. I think perhaps we're having separate arguments. I think you're wanting to say the Russians are shitbags. And what I'm wanting to say is, let's look at this structurally and try to design a structure where we become friends with them. So I'm not saying you have to trust or like Putin. I don't trust or like Putin, but you can do business with them. I wouldn't forfeit your energy independence to Russia either. That doesn't seem like a good idea, but I don't know that. That's not what I'm calling for.
By the way, that was a Trump thing. Trump was like, hey, don't do the Nord Stream pipeline to Germany. You're just going to become dependent on Russian gas, and you're going to regret it. And then Biden greenlit it and blew it up. So,
yeah. And what I'm just looking at here, it's like you kind of have to look at what your own politicians did here. They chose to make those deals in the first place, keep you dependent on Russian oil, and go along with the sanctions. So it's like, I get Russia bad, but at the same time, there were events that led up to this that weren't all Russia's fault. Like Andrew kind of mentioned it briefly, but NATO did keep marching towards Russia's border when we promised that wouldn't happen. Like there are 2 sides to these things. And the Russian antagonism against the West isn't just because Russia bad. Like, they actually have some decent reasons for mistrusting us. And I think at a certain point, you have to look at your own politicians and their culpability in the bad relations that have been formed since the end of World War II.
Wait, let me jump in real quick, Justin. This is very pertinent here. The Federation always assumes we're the good guys. and that everybody else knows they're the bad guys, right? Of course, we're the Federation. We're the good guys. Don't worry, we're the good guys, right? Here's the problem. I can't
believe you interrupted me so you could do another fucking Star Trek
Every
reference.
country,
I like this one though.
Every country thinks one of two things. It either thinks, no, we're the good guys and you're the bad guys, or it thinks we're all bad guys and you're a liar. That's what every country in the world thinks. There's not a country around where the regime thinks we're the bad guys and you guys are good. Even the really shitty regimes, what they think is that you guys are playing holier than thou, but you're the exact same as we are. So when we take this position of like, well, like we're the good guys, they're the bad guys, so it doesn't matter if we put missiles on their border. That's just not how they're going to interpret that event.
Exactly.
All right. So real quick, one of the things that I think America is particularly blind on, because we just do not fundamentally understand it in the same way, are also ethnic and regional ties. When Putin talks about taking Ukraine beyond the NATO stuff, when he justifies it by way of why Russia should absorb Ukraine, it's because he believes that the Ukrainian people are not a real people. They are an invented thing that was slapped on them by Western powers. And in reality, the ethnic and the ties that bind to Russia are the ones that actually matter, right? That's something that America, because we are so transient, because we are constantly absorbing other cultures, and we're a very young country. We're going to celebrate our 250th birthday in the next year. Like, we just don't grok that in the same in the same way. So like, there are things at play there that we're not going to understand. We're going to understand things by the NATO example, because we know, like, okay, if China put missiles in Mexico, we'd be mad. We know that when the USSR put armed Cuba, we were mad as hell, and it was a massive thing, right? So we can understand that. We get that. The stuff that's happening there obviously is just deeper and more entrenched than I do think that the mainstream American understanding of it really is. And I'll leave it to you guys, because you're a haunted museum and the blue sky of places. Enjoy it, Europe.
You know what's fascinating about this, and I'll try to make this quick, but you've just heard a really good, quick roundtable of IR theory. So like in IR theory, kind of everybody agrees like power is very important, but the realists go, it's just power. That's it. It's just power. All countries are billiard balls. It's just an equation of power and being able to protect themselves, and everything else is nonsense. It's just window dressing, right? The Marxists go, it's power, but also like 30% of it's money. And I'm using Marxist here in a technical sense, not in a pejorative sense. Like Jen, I think more broadly falls into that camp of like, follow the money. This is about corporate interests. Power is important, but corporate interests are important. Social constructivists go, power is important, but there's a lot of social ties that you need to think about. Like, are the two monarchies related? Do they speak the same language? Do they have the same religion? That's where social constructivists come in. And the neocons that we've kind of heard some listeners espouse in this episode have the opinion that power is important, but you can lessen the risk of countries going to war if we spread liberal institutions like capitalism and democracy. And so we make the world safer by promoting those through NATO and through various groups.
Guns.
Huh?
And guns.
And guns. Yeah,
and
we basically, like, if we can sort of push democracy onto other countries.
Vote for your leader or I'll kill you.
But you're seeing kind of like a widespread, like, theoretical viewpoint of how we approach these things. I actually kind of find it surprising that Jen and I agree so much, because we have very different tectonic plates underneath us, but we tend to arrive at the same place in terms of policy implications.
Let me also go back to another email that mentioned like, oh, I don't think that this will end Russia's hostilities if at best it'll get you 10 years of peace. I agree. Also, I think that we have a different opinion on whether or not a peace deal should preclude 10 years of peace being a good thing. I think that there's a lot that can get done in a decade. And if I were Ukraine, not only would I want 10 years of peace, but I would want 4 Trump hotels. I would want to give Hunter Biden a television show, and I would want to be tying myself culturally and financially as close as I can to the United States. So by the time that Russia starts thinking about this kind of stuff again, it's a different situation than it was before, because a lot can be different in 10 years if you want it to be, and you were thinking about it like that.
Good point.
California sober. That was our other topic last week. Drink Police writes, as a guy who doesn't drink very much, the alcohol plus people equals friends convo seems sad. You're also concerned about what other people think that you're ordering non-alcoholic beers in a glass to fit in. Order a Pepsi with a maraschino cherry, you twat. Who gives a fuck what other people think of your choice of beverage? If they're judging you so hard about it, then fuck them. This is my favorite roundtable quote unquote political podcast because all three of you seem like independent thinkers, but this honestly brings that all into question.
So I'm going to thank you for writing in this incredibly rude email because it also is going to exhibit something that I didn't discuss in the last episode, which is the phenomenon of sober people that make people not want to get sober because this high and mighty attitude that just makes you not any fun to be around. And because you've always been sober, you look down on people like us. And I think the only way I can explain this to you is that if you're someone who drank for a long time, there's a whole culture around it. And so what I'm dealing with is I am extracting myself from a culture while still trying to participate in it. And that is what I'm saying is difficult. So here's an analogy for you. We have some friends that play Dungeons and Dragons, and it's a whole culture. People dress up, and when you go to those parties, you're in the culture, you play characters, it's a whole thing. If you decided that you didn't want to play that anymore, but still wanted to hang out with those people, it would probably be difficult to go to those parties, not dress up, not be in character, and still be in the room. It would be an adjustment period. Where someone like me who's never played before, I can probably go and sit in the corner and just like kind of watch and be fine. But extracting yourself from a culture that you were still in while still being there physically, that's tough to do. So like, congratulations for you that you've never drank before. I am genuinely happy for your liver and it's great. But to judge us, and especially to call me a twat, by the way, like we don't talk to each other that way. I don't think it's okay for you to talk to us that way. But to judge us because we are going through a change in our culture, this is what makes some people not want to be around sober people because there is a judgment that happens. And so it's like, this is also difficult where it's like, I still want to hang out with people that drink, but I don't really want to hang out with you. You know, I want to find the people in the middle. And this kind of attitude is what a lot of people are afraid of when they decide to stop drinking. It's exactly this attitude that you exhibited today.
I would like to pile on now. Listener, you were out of line. You were really out of line. I am going to assume that you're trying to be cheeky. I don't think you're using twat where you're really saying it in anger. I think that's such a strong word that I'm just assuming you're using it in a funny way. But what you were doing here is judging us based on what was a very vulnerable conversation we were having publicly for the benefit of others that might need it. I know I've had a complicated relationship with alcohol.
And money.
Thank you. Justin, it would be best if you let me get through this one without any comments. I know I've had a very complicated relationship with alcohol. I know Jen's had a complicated relationship with alcohol. I'm not going to speak for Justin. I know that at least two of the people on this podcast, at least two, have people that have been close in their lives that had suffered from alcoholism. We had to, I'm not going to go into it, but there's a lot of shit you don't know about. So in any way, judging how me or Jen or anybody else is coping with alcohol in their lives is absolutely grade A shitbag material. Now to do that and then question our competency at our jobs is beyond the pale. You have insulted me professionally and you've insulted me personally, and I do not like you. Well said.
I think you're probably fun at parties. Look, man, part of it is beyond the alcohol thing. There's a little bit of a main character syndrome where either you believe that when you walk into the room, the entire world has to react to you. And that's no way to live because we're all a part of everybody else's story. So when we talk about trying to make health or mental decisions or career decisions based on our consumption, that we are all on some level just the addition of everything that we put in our bodies and the people that we talk to, then there are certain elements to that. And part of it is you don't want to be cut off. You don't want to just say, okay, well now I'm leaving a group of people because we always meet at a bar. Oftentimes, if you've spent a lot of time drinking beer, you also just want a situation where even if you're not getting drunk, you want to kind of taste beer when you hang out with your friends, because that's just a pairing that you've had for a long period of time. Maybe that cycles out, but to assume that people don't want to have, like, the non-alcoholic beers that are out there now are really fucking
the
good.
IPA ones are great.
They kind of taste like something that's enough that you can hum along and get the best of both worlds. And that's ultimately what a lot of people have.
I like hanging out with drunks and weirdos and whores. That's my social life. I go out in the evening and I go to karaoke bars and I hang out with weirdos. And a lot of the time, I don't want them to get defensive. Like, there have been situations where I've gone, like last year when I was sober for a year, where I don't want to get into a conversation with somebody where they now feel weird that I'm not drinking and they're going to get kind of defensive.
And they have to have the conversation about sobriety,
and they're now going to explain to me why they're not a drunk. And it's
then
like, it's fine. I just don't want to talk to you about it.
Exactly.
I don't want to, like, this is for their benefit a lot of the time, even if it doesn't bother me.
It is a way to short circuit a conversation that doesn't need to happen and isn't going to really benefit anybody, but feels like it's societally expected if now you are putting this thing out there and they need to respond to. Beyond that, man, if you're ever in a situation and you feel that you want to judge somebody, you feel angry about their decisions, or you feel like you want to judge them, the only thing that I would ask is think about where they are in the sentence and the paragraph of their lives. So I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt and assume that you heard this and you had a reaction, so much so that you wrote in with a sharp-tongued email, either because you think that we are all really good friends and you're going to react in an acerbic way, because oftentimes I can joke around with Heaton or Jen can joke around with me and Heaton in a way that is acerbic and mean. And so you are either filling in with the language of our conversation, which you missed the mark a little bit. and sometimes, you got to realize that that's not always the case in an asymmetric relationship, or things aren't going great. And you wanted to be able to take some of that out on people that aren't really people. They're voices that come out of the speaker, which I get. I understand. I'm going to give you that grace. And all I would ask is that you give that grace to others.
Yeah, because like Andrew said, talking about this publicly is a choice that we decided to make because there's other people we know are going through the same thing. And I know that when I was quitting, I didn't really want to talk about it with people. So I was listening to others who were speaking publicly. And so that's why I decided to do the same. But it is a lot of vulnerability. And as someone who doesn't drink, I don't think that you can understand it, because just from your comments that, like, why do you care what other people think when you're ordering non-alcoholic beers? I don't think you understand that, like, what we're ordering at the bars, that's the easy part. It's not about what other people think that I'm drinking a non-alcoholic Corona, which, by the way, tastes exactly like Corona. But it's the fact that, like, when I smell the beer, like, I kind of want that dopamine hit. So I'm not drinking beer because I'm actually trying to get away from it, where other people do drink the beers and it helps them. Like, it's different for every single one of us that is trying to stay in a culture that we're also simultaneously trying to get out of. So it's like you're commenting on something that you just don't understand.
Yeah, I will. So to elaborate on Justin's point, yeah, I think, listener, let's assume that this is all done in good faith. I think you need to know moving forward that when you're talking to people about, like, substance abuse, it is deeply personal and deeply sensitive, and you're fucking around with a third rail, and it's just not a smart move. Just tactically speaking, it is not a smart move. Like, on my program, when I was drinking, I had an episode on dopamine. We got into addiction. Somebody in my family suffers from alcoholism. So, like, I had a thing at the end where, like, if you're in Austin, Texas, where I was living at the time, if you want to go to an AA meeting, email me and I'll go with you. It's very important to me. But, like, I'm trying real hard not to cry right now. This is deeply, deeply sensitive stuff for me. So you're fucking with something that's really emotional for people. And it's a good idea to just err on the side of caution.
Yeah.
Cheeseburger in Paradise writes, if you told me that you were Jimmy Buffett sober, I would assume you were an international drug dealer.
That's also fair, because he spent a lot of time on boats.
Mm-hmm. He did.
He did.
We're Not Wrong is a production of Dog and Pony Show Audio. Our editor is Will Saddleberg.
We don't have any more questions
PX3.
about my sex life or fun emails about that? We burned through all those already?
God, no. We can stop talking about your dick. In fact, that was the whole conversation, was that you've talked so much more about your dick on all of your different platforms for the last few weeks. And everybody was wondering why there was a lot of sex talk from Heaton recently.
I don't know. Getting good content out of it. And I'm hoping to lose my virginity soon, as regards to that earlier email.
Yeah, we have waited a long time.
Yeah.
It's been a while. It's been a while.
Should we do one of those packs?
PX,
Like if we hit 50, we have sex with each other?
Yes, Jen. If we hit 50, we'll have sex with each other.
We can finally pay off this will they, won't they shit between you two. Fucking moonlighting over here. All right. PX3 this week. We talk to Jen. Jen is on. We talk about the Democratic strategy on whether or not to shut down the government. And then I was done with the episode and the Republicans passed the CR that would essentially preclude a shutdown, which moves it to the Senate. And so we talked to Matt Laszlo, who was in the chamber when it happened, everything that went in to that decision and whether or not the Democratic Senate will take credit for a shutdown of the government on PX3 this week. Jen?
So I just released an episode about the Panama Canal because, as we know, President Trump is threatening to reclaim it. And we don't know what the hell that means or why. But the Republicans did have a hearing about it. And I learned a lot about their perspective on it. And there's actually been some developments that make me think, let's just say at the end of it, I think you'll feel better. You'll be informed because that issue isn't quite over. But I know when I finished it, I feel like anytime I hear about the Panama Canal now, I'm going to understand what they're talking about, what the issues are that still remain, which ones appear to be getting solved. I feel like it's a really good episode if that's something that's on your mind at all. I think you'll feel much more empowered as the news on that unfolds.
Heaton?
Y'all know how DEI has been coming up in the news a lot. That
really?
Trump
has.
Elon been talking about DEI. I wanted to talk to somebody about DEI who is coming at it from the other side. I would say my default position is not that like reflexive conservative hostility, but suspicion. Like I'm skeptical of it because it sounds kind of woke and also kind of grafty to me. So I brought on a former DEI consultant. We have a really good conversation about it of like, what is this? What is the actual lay of the land? What are the terms being used? I'd say one broad takeaway I have is that I think when conservatives talk about DEI, a lot of the time they're really talking about racial quotas, which is a different thing. And I'm very opposed to racial quotas, but my guest, who is a DEI consultant, is also opposed to racial quotas. And so if you want to find out what DEI is, as opposed to just kind of stake a claim and start fighting about it, This Week on the Political Orphanage is a really good way to get some depth on that issue.
I love that.
Good stuff. Well, that'll wrap it up for us today. Until next time, this is your old pal, Justin Robert Young, for Andrew Heaton and Jen Briney, reminding you that we're not wrong.
Drinking breast milk is.
Now you got to keep it. Now you got to keep it.
Straight from the
tap. Yep, can't cut it now.
Dog and Pony Show audio.